I call this special call board meeting to order. Dr. Salazar, you lead us in the pledge, please. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Trevino, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Garza, Mr. Leonel Garza.
Present.
Ms. Sandra Garcia.
Present.
I'm here. Mr. Ruben Trevino. Mr. Martin Castillo. Mr. Ray Farias. Mr. Jesus Amaya.
Present.
Ms. Leticia Quintero.
Present.
Dr. Gonzalo Salazar.
Present. Item 5, public hearing. 1/2017-2018 Texas Academic Performance Report. Dr. Salazar.
Mr. Garza, members of the board, this evening we comply with a requirement to present at a public hearing basically what is called the district report card, the Texas Academic Performance Report. And here to lead that presentation is Mr. Ben Estrada, Director of Assessment. Mr. Estrada.
Thank you, Dr. Salazar. Mr. President, Dr. Salazar, board members, ladies and gentlemen. The Texas Academic Performance Report is released one time a year, right around this time. Brief history, someone asked me the other day, why did we present the 2018 data so late? It is 2019, and we're talking about 2018. Well, if we take into account the accountability system, our preliminary accountability ratings are released in August. And part of statute does allow districts to appeal their ratings. So there's a time period where TEA is reviewing all of the appeals that are submitted, and then once those appeals are heard and finalized, then the final report card is released. And that's why we present it in January. Technical difficulties. Technology is great when it works, right? So the Texas Academic Performance Report, there are several parts in statute that are required. So as we move forward, first part is we must identify our district leadership. So on this first slide, you will see all of your names, as well as our superintendent, Dr. Salazar, and our executive cabinet down at the bottom. Statute also requires that we list the district improvement plans for the 2017-2018 school year so that anyone that does look at the summary can identify those goals and see how well we came up to meeting those goals. Also part of the requirement is that we list our campus performance objectives. Again, as we go through, the district does receive its own report card, but each campus also receives a report card. So they can take a look at that and see how they met up against the campus performance objectives. Also included in the TAPR report is a summary of the accountability ratings. Over the last couple of years, the accountability system has kind of gone through an evolution. It's been changing every year. It's finally stabilized a little bit. In 2018, part of the requirements were that districts would receive a letter rating instead of just getting a MET standard or a required improvement standard. As you all know, Los Fresnos did score an A rating for the 2018 school year. All campuses, though, resorted back to the old accountability system where they only met the standard or required improvement. And as you can see in the summary here, all of our campuses did meet the performance standards, so all of our campuses were in compliance. Also included in the accountability ratings are what are known as the Academic Achievement Distinction Designations. This basically acknowledges high performance in the areas of English language arts, mathematics, science, social studies, academic growth, post-secondary readiness, and closing the performance gaps. For districts, we are only allowed, or actually we only get rated for one distinction designation, and that is the post-secondary readiness, which we have achieved every year of its existence. And then from there, you can see that all of our campuses met that post-secondary requirement, and then you can also see a summary of how they performed and how many distinctions they earned by specific subject, and as you can see, we did very well. The chapter also includes student demographics based on makeup of our district. In 2017-2018, we had approximately 10,770 students at the time. 96.3% of those are considered Hispanic, with an economically disadvantaged rate of 76.6%. If you look at the bottom of the slide, you will see a breakdown of student enrollment by special program. This includes bilingual ESL, gifted and talented, special education, and career and technology education. Operation expenditures. This is one of there are several components of the TAPR that actually take a little time to compile, and we do go back several years. So the operational expenditures are actually audited expenditures from the year 2016-2017. And you can see here a summary of all of our expenditures for that year as it compares to the state expenditures. The chapter also includes a breakdown of our staff demographics. I want to draw your attention to the comparison between the state and district for teachers that have master's degrees. The state has an average of, I think it's 23.6, I'm having a little trouble seeing it, whereas the district, we are at above 28% of our teachers have master's degrees. Also, we look down on that page, we see a breakdown of the experience that our teachers have. Roughly 2.7% are beginning teachers. And then from there, 1 to 10 years, we average right around 20%. So that's a good number. And then between 1 and, a little blurry over there, 36% of our teachers have up to 13 years. Thank you, 11 and 20. Thank you, sir. And then over 20 years, we have 19%. So our teachers are very well experienced. Two things I want to draw your attention to this particular slide. One is the teacher ratio. The state average is 15.1%, whereas our teacher ratio is 16%. We are just above. But most importantly, I do want to point out the turnover rate for our teachers. The state has a turnover rate of 16.6%. Los Fresnos only has 7.3%, a 7.3% turnover rate. And basically what that means is once teachers get hired in our district, they like it here so much they don't go anywhere, which is a good thing. Well, student performance. This is makes up the bulk of the Texas Academic Performance Report. And no performance report would be complete without a complete summary of how our students do in all subject areas in all of our tests. So if we look at the very first slide, I do want to break it down for you. We're looking at the approaches grade level and above for all grade levels, ELA and reading. So if we scroll down the bottom, you will see all of the subpopulations that are reported. We have the all students, African American, Hispanic, white, economically disadvantaged, and special ed. I do want to draw your attention to the asterisk under the African American population. State requires that once a subpopulation falls below a certain number, it is not reported publicly to protect the student confidentiality. So you will see that across the slides. But the common trend that you will find in this slide and the slides to come are that we basically are ahead of the region and the state in all subject areas for all subpopulations. So if we look at the all students category, our students perform at 83%. At the region, we're at 72%, and at the state, at 74%. Mathematics follows that exact same trend. 89% for Los Fresnos, 83% for the region, and 81% at the state level. In writing, again, same trend continues across the board. 81% of our students are successful in writing, 68% at the region, and 66% at the state. Now, I do want to draw your attention to the last subpopulation of special education. Some of you may note that it drops a little bit from the other subpopulations. Two things to take into account for this particular subpop. Writing is only tested in 4th and 7th grade. So once we have a smaller testing population, every student counts. So that is the first thing to consider. And the second, we are looking at students that fall under special education, students with special needs or learning disabilities. So that area was addressed by Mr. McDonough last week in the PB MOS. So it is an area of focus, but I did want you to draw attention that we are aware of that, and we are working on that. Science, again, trend continues, 91% at the district level, 81% at the region, and 80% at the state. Social studies, again, 85% at the district level, 79% at the region, 78% at the state. And again, that same trend that we saw in writing. Social studies is only tested in 8th grade. So again, smaller population, and again, looking at students with special ed or with learning disabilities, that is going to drop our numbers. So those were the grades 3 through 8. How about high school? Does that trend continue? Well, yes, it does. So when we look across the bottom, we're going to look at the student performance of English 1, English 2, Algebra, Biology, and U.S. History. And as you can see across the board, we lead the region and the state in performance in all subject areas. And excuse me one moment. I'm going to move the computer over so I can. Maybe now. There we go. Next slide. STAR, and basically all state assessments have 3 levels of student performance. They have the approaches, the meets, and the masters. Approaches is the bare minimum that students can score and still be successful on the exam. Basically, approaches is exactly that. The students are approaching performance on grade level assessments. Meets the standard basically means that they have met the grade level performance for that particular subject area. It is more rigorous. It is a higher percentage. So these students are actually performing very well. And then we have the masters, which is the highest level. Students are performing well above grade level and are well on their way to doing very well in school. So if we look at our performance for meets in all subjects, we have English, Reading Language Arts, Mathematics, Writing, Science, and Social Studies. As you can see, the trend that we saw in the approaches in all of the subject areas, we also see at the meets grade level standard. If we move to that higher passing standard of masters, again, we see that same trend across the board, all subject areas, English Language Arts, Mathematics, Writing, Science, and Social Studies. When STAR was first initiated several years ago, the state wanted to build in a system to keep track of our students to see if they are making that growth. If they are going from one year to the next, are they making the necessary growth to be successful in the next grade level? So the psychometricians at TA actually built in a system where they can mathematically computate whether or not students are successful and are going to be successful in the future. If we look at the English language arts and mathematics, which also ties into the ESSA, the federal requirements, which are the only two subjects that the federal requirements looks at, you can see that we are very well in competition, right in line with regional and state, 70% in English in reading and 73% in math. And if we look at both subjects combined, we are just above the state and the region at 72%, region at 70%, and the state at 69%. That being said, we also wanted to know, well, what happens to the students that are not successful? How can we track those students? This was introduced 2 years ago by the TAPR, basically looking at students that were unsuccessful the previous year. How did they do the following year? So when we look at our numbers, if we look at mathematics, 51% of the students that were unsuccessful the previous year in reading were successful in 2018. And in 2017, for students that were unsuccessful in math, 64% were successful the following year. So we are helping our students continue to grow and do very well on our state assessments. The next slide is a general comparison of our attendance rates. On the far left, you will see the state, regional, and district attendance rates, as well as the attendance rates for all of our campuses. College readiness. This is the new term that has been introduced for accountability. Are our students ready for college? That is the bottom line. Are we preparing our kids? And there are several components that go into determining whether or not a district and its students are ready for college. The first one that they would look at is the dropout rate. Are we keeping our students, or are we losing them? And as you can see, if we look at grades 7 through 8 for the class of 2017, all of this data is 1 year behind. It does take time to audit our records to determine how we did. For Los Fresnos, in grades 7 through 8, our dropout rate was 0.2% when you compare it to the district, the state at 0.3. When we look at grades 9 through 12, the district dropout rate is 1.9% compared to the state at 1.3%, excuse me, when you compare to the state at 1.9. So we are retaining our students and we are keeping our students, and we do have several initiatives in the district to help us retain our students. So let's look at our graduation rate, 4-year longitudinal. Part of statute and actually part of the guidelines of the state do require us to track students that are required to graduate in 4 years. A student is classified as a 9th grader. He has 4 years to graduate. So when we look at that student population as a group, 91.5% of those students are graduating within the 4-year time period. We do have a small pocket of 4.2% that do come back to us to finish up their requirements and graduation, and that falls in line. Actually, you can see that we are leading the state and the region. The state at 89.7%, the region at 90.3%. So our graduation rate is above our measuring sticks, so to speak. So when our students graduate, they can graduate with several types of diplomas, but one of the ones that is actually reported is the Recommended High School program and the Distinguished Academic program. So when we look at the class of 17, 94.7% of our graduates graduated with one of those distinctions, compared to the 92.2% across the region and the 87.2% at the state level. If we move over to the right, we're looking at college readiness indicators, the advanced dual credit course completion. We are above the state, 39.1% as compared to the 37.1% that the state has. But you'll notice that we are slightly below the region in this particular area. And as we look at the numbers, this can be attributed to several factors, but probably the number one factor is the prevalence of early college high schools across Region 1, where they really push students to go after those associate's degrees, whereas we focus more on the core subjects to make sure that these students pick up those core curriculum courses before they go off into college. It kind of goes to the old saying of quality versus quantity. So for students that we do have in advanced placement courses and do take the exam, how do they fare? Well, if we look at all subjects overall in AP results, 60.1% of our students are successful in the tests that they do take. When you compare that to the region at 33.2% and 49.1% of the state, we're doing very, very well. English language arts, we are well above the region, slightly below the state in that area, but again, we are working on that. And you can see that in mathematics, science, and social studies, we are well above the state and the region in those areas. The TAPR also includes a summary of the average SAT scores for our graduates and the average ACT scores and the SAT scores. You can see for the ACT that our scores are very much in line with the state, 19.1% versus the 20.3%, and we are above the region, 17.8%. And if we look at SAT, we stay very much in line right above the region and just below the state. Part of the reason for the discrepancy between the two particular exams is in our district, some students choose to take the ACT, other students take the SAT. We have very few students that actually try to tackle both. So when you dilute the number of students, that's going to drop those scores and kind of level them out, so to speak. But we like to stay within striking distance of the state and SAT. We are right there, and then of course we level off at the ACT. So, when our students graduate, where do they go? This is one of those top concepts in the TAPR that actually goes back 2 years. We're looking at the class of 2016. And again, it's all about auditing. When they graduate, they go to college, they finish up that first year, and then of course we get the results. So when we're looking at the class of 2016, 47.1% of our graduates enrolled in a Texas Institute of Higher Education. Now, you may be thinking, well, kind of low. It's 47.1%. Where do the other students go? Well, we have a large number of graduates that go to school out of state. This is only Texas schools that are reporting. This also doesn't include private schools, parochial schools, and does not include military. So, and the next slide will actually put it into perspective for you. But for those students that actually go into college, 62.2% managed to complete their first year without enrolling in any developmental education course. So they are doing very well once they leave our boundaries. And the next slide is actually a summary of that class of 2016. So what are the actual numbers that we were talking about for those students that enroll in the higher education? If we look down at the bottom of the slide, in 2016 we had 728 graduates. 173 enrolled in a 4-year public university. 174 enrolled in 2-year public colleges. We had 6 students that went into independent colleges and universities. We had 28 students that were not trackable, and this is typically errors with ID numbers, social security numbers of that kind. And then we had 347 students that were not found. So those 347 students fall in line with that 47% that was indicated in the slide before. And again, those students go out of state, go to private schools, or schools that actually do not report to the College Board, and it also includes our military. And that concludes the summary for the Texas Academic Performance Report. Are there any questions?
Questions? Mr. Trevino?
Yes, Mr. Estrada, great presentation.
Thank
Just had a question, I didn't catch the last. For those that go into private schools or parochial and all of that, is that the 347? The not found?
Of the
students
not found, they are included in there.
In there.
They are included in there.
Military is also in there.
Military is also in there, out of state. And actually, if I remember correctly, I want to say UT does not report to the College Board, so I don't think they're in that number.
Really?
Either.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any questions from the audience? Thank you, sir. That was quite good.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to turn over the next portion of the presentation to Ms. Amaro Cibaja that will go through the campus incident reports.
Good afternoon. President Garza, members of the board, Dr. Salazar. There is another requirement by TAPR that we also report any violent or criminal actions or discipline that we had here in our district. What we do is we go above and beyond. We not only report any criminal or violent, we report all incidents to you. So the following is the requirement. There's two parts to this presentation. The first part that's required is our incident reports. We have to report what type of incidents and the actions taken. And part two is what are we doing, what interventions do we have in place or preventions to assist our students and the actions that they are having in their class. So as we look, and we just looked at the presentation that Mr. Estrada did, we know that our campuses are doing a beautiful job in academics, but part of that comes with discipline and the structured classroom. And in that structured classrooms, we have to work together to support our teachers, to support anyone working with our students. So our departments, our Los Fresnos Police Department, and administrators work very, very closely. So I'm going to start off with the campus incidents report, and I'm going to lay out the format of this presentation by the first slide. The first one is any violations of the Student Code of Conduct. And the number right next to it is the Code 21. This is just the numbers that we use in codes for our PEMS. This is how we report our incidents to the PEMS department that codes it in our data management system. And along the side, I've divided it between elementaries and secondary. A violation of Student Code of Conduct can deal from maybe a dress code violation to just not following classroom rules. And if we look across, we see that overall, I've done it by elementary campuses if they had a violation of Student Code of Conduct, how many they had. There's a comparison between 2016, 2017 in the gold, and 2017 and 2018 in the maroon. So overall, the total below there was a decrease this school year in those violations. And when they receive a violation, they have a referral. They go over to the office. The administrators talk to our students. It becomes a teachable moment. What could they have done better in order to prevent them being referred over to our administration? So that's elementary. In our secondary, secondary students can be a little bit more challenging. They like to take risks. And even though we had a significant decrease in total, we had some campuses with a slight increase. But overall, we had 613 less incidents this year than we did last year. The next slide is only for middle schools. And this is a felony of a controlled substance and coded as a 36. And this is when a student is caught with 4 ounces or more of a controlled substance, meaning cocaine, marijuana, or anything that's controlled, and it's 4 ounces or more. This is the code that we use. There was a 50% decrease. We went from 8 to 4. Any student that is caught with or charged with a felony is charged. And we know here that our canines are also doing a really good job in making sure that they detect these controlled substances. We had and we noticed that there's no report in the elementary because we had no such incidents in the elementary. The next one is possession of a controlled substance at the secondary level. The difference between this one and the prior one is this one is less than 4 ounces, and this is where you sell, you give, or you deliver to another person a controlled substance. And there was a decrease from overall in all of our campuses from 33 to 65. This just manifests that our PD, our security, and our teachers are doing a great job. The next one is mutual combat, fighting. This has to do with 2 or more students engaged in physical combat. There has to be a blow. There's a significant decrease in Los Cuates Middle School. We see Resaca a little high. And if we look at the middle schools, there's some very low, and then we have Resaca high. But what we're looking at is that we know that we have to work with our administrators. There has to be a discrepancy on how they're coding it. And we're working together with our administrators so they can, what constitutes a fighting and what constitutes maybe a scuffle. So we have to look at that. We're working with our administrators at this time to provide further training and working in aligning our codes. That's what I have there. There was an increase overall of over 1. Terroristic threat. This is when a person is placed in imminent danger or serious bodily injury. Overall, we had some increases at Liberty, at the SACA, and LFU, with some decreases. Overall, we had 9 in our district compared to 3 for last year. The next slide is the summary of other incidents, and I just went ahead and put them into one. Public lewdness, we only had 2 at LFU. A felony committed off campus. So anything that's committed off campus, we bring them in, and if they are charged as a felony, this constitutes a DAP placement. It can range from any Title V offenses, from assault, aggravated assault, injury to a child, or just some of the examples. The next one was alcohol. We had 1 at the high school, and this can be very easily disguised. Sometimes they can bring them in a water bottle. Or this year, we went ahead and said no more Yetis because students could bring something in a Yeti disguise. So at this time, at the high school, there are no Yetis or that are not clear at the high school, or any glass containers. Retaliation against school employee. So Fresnos High School had 3, LSU had 2. The second part is what actions did our administrators take? What did they do? Out of school suspension, these are elementaries. There was a 50% decrease overall. So in this case, it might be sent home for the day or for 2 days, limit of no more than, we have 3 days out of school suspension. So those are our elementaries. We have some decreases. Some increases at Rancho Verde, but overall decrease about 50%. Out of school suspension in the secondary campuses. We saw overall a decrease, about 121 incidents as a total. Some campuses do send them out of school suspension, and they're removed from the campus and sent out. Our practice has changed a little. Before, many years ago, we used to have 3 days in school suspension, 5 days out of school. We're doing it more individualized. We want our students to be in the classroom where they are receiving instruction. So the 3-5 rule is no longer in effect and hasn't been for a couple of years. More individualized of what discipline do we give that student. Partial out of school suspension in the elementary. This might be a situation where the student is sent home for the remainder of the day. They had an incident after lunch, then they're just sent home for the rest of the day, but they come back the following day. So it's just partial day. We saw a decrease overall. We had 10 last year, 2 this school year. Partial out of school suspension in the secondary had a decrease of 25 overall. I think everyone went down. The second middle school, we went up, was the only one with an increase of 3. In-school suspension at the elementary, so instead of sending them home, we keep them in a more structured, supervised setting. They have in-school suspension in school, somebody supervising, providing them their work, and ensuring that they continue to receive some of that instruction. So we had a 61% decrease. I think the only 2 increases were Olmito Elementary and PLE, but overall 61% decrease. In-school suspension secondary. Overall, there's a decrease. There was an increase in Los Cuates and Resaca, but we had a difference from last year to this year of 198 disciplines, so we went down. Partial in-school suspension, so they might have committed an offense maybe during third, fourth period and say, you know, for the rest of the day, you can go to in-school suspension, or maybe they only had to be in school suspension for one period. And this is at the elementary level. So we had a decrease in all the campuses with the exception of PLE. I think there was an increase of 2. And overall, 37% decrease. This is in school for our secondary campuses. All campuses decrease, a slight increase at Los Fresnos High School. Overall, total decrease of 363 in suspensions in the district. DAP placements, these are serious violations that call for a placement at DAP. So there was an increase. These are mandatory placements or discretionary. I will let you know that any discretionary placements, we have a review committee. We talk to our campuses to see what interventions have they set in place before we allow the discretionary placement. So there's a committee who reviews the discretionary placement, but most of them are mandatory placements that they have to report over to the AP. JJAP, these are mandatory expulsions. If you look at this, there's one. This is the first in many years at an elementary campuses. This was a serious incident at PLE where a student was charged. There were outside agencies. But to let you know that our administrators are counseling went above and beyond. Even though their student was placed at JJAP and was expelled, we would send our counselor once a week and our administrator to make sure the student was working, make sure the student was safe, make sure the student was receiving services. And we visited, or they visited, the student weekly. Student is now back at our campus, and so far, I think he's been here 2 weeks, doing very well. In our secondary, this is a mandatory expulsion. There was a decrease overall of 47%. On the next slide, what I did, this is an action summary, so I just wanted to show overall all the actions that we're taking in comparison to both years. And if we look across, there was a decrease overall. So we looked at our incident reports of the first part with the actions. We can show that there's a relation that the incidents went down and so did our actions. Part 2, as I stated, was the interventions and the preventions. What are we doing as a district to assist our students, our staff, and our parents? So we have a vision. As a district, our vision is to improve in our practices and be responsive. To do this, we have to engage. We have to engage our teachers, and we have to engage our parents. And we have to implement. By doing this, we're building our relationships, we're providing restorative discipline, and at the same time, engaging our parents, educating our parents on what they can do at home as we collaborate and work together. A critical component of our safety here in Los Fresnos is our Los Fresnos CISD Police Department. They've been working very, very closely with our campuses, with our departments, and all the interventions in Maroon. Those are some of the interventions that we've done throughout the years and continue to implement. But this school year, Some new initiatives are school safety and crisis presentations. They've done crisis presentations to our staff, to our parents. They've been collaborating between campus behavior coordinators and CISD police. We've been working together into what are the newest trends that are happening in our communities, in our schools. And our campus behavior coordinators are meeting with their police to see, okay, what is out there? What do we need to keep our eyes out? It's interesting in what students are using to hide some substances or what new trends are out there. And our district police is doing a wonderful job in assisting our administrators. The district family engagement department, they also are educating our parents and informing our parents how do they become proactive, how do they procure the safety of their child and be more involved in the child's education. This school year we've had some parent educators that are working with some of our six elementary campus. We have parent educators who are doing monthly presentations at the campus, and then another presentation at the district level dealing with crisis, drugs, gangs, or just how to become more involved with their child. So they're doing bilingual presentations for all of our parents at our campus and at the district. We're also started required pre-K meetings, starting young, starting at an early age, and how do parents become involved with our students. The counseling department has quite a few new initiatives, and we know that in society right now we hear a lot about mental health, and I know a focus has been mental health awareness initiative. The ACT, we acknowledge, we care, and we tell. So this is a curriculum that an initiative that our counseling department is working on. We've also had the anonymous report link. It's on our website, so anyone can anonymously report any bullying, any threat, or any mental health issue or concern that they have. They don't want to come personally to a staff member. They can just go into the link, send an anonymous note, and they'll pick it up in the counseling department and start assisting the student. We also have Signs of Suicide, or SOS. This is a district-wide suicide prevention program. And we continue to work with our counseling service, our contract counseling services for drugs, alcohol, and mental health with A New Today. And to address tobacco and e-cigarettes, vaping has become very popular at our high schools. And for this, we have ONIDOT, PPC, that's been working with the counseling department. And all the other initiatives are continued. They're there from throughout the years, and we continue to working on that. So we know that our children are dealing with situations that you and I might not have encountered when we were in school, but as a district, we continue to take initiatives to be proactive and to assist our students in making better choices and working with our community and working with outside agencies and providing the services that we need for our students. That's all I have.
Questions from the board? Mr. Trevino.
Yes, ma'am. What, on the anonymous report link, what type of response have we gotten on that? Have students been utilizing that to report bullying and threats?
I'm going to defer that question to Mr. McDonough because he works closely with the counseling department.
Most of the tips that we get are based on the relationships that officers and administrators have with kids. They feel confident that's out there as a resource or as an option for them, but most of what we get is directly from students who saw something and decided to say something.
It's nice that we have, though, another layer of reporting, you know, that students can take advantage of. So glad to hear the middle school kiddos are utilizing that.
Any other questions? Ms. Garcia.
Yeah, I commend you on the mental health, the way you're addressing it. I know that it's something that we had been seeing at the continuing education that we had gone to and we had talked about. But you see it so much at the university level now. So it's good that our kids are getting more comfortable talking about it when they go into the university level. They have resources there too they continue to use. So I commend you for forward thinking and always bringing new programs.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Farias.
No questions, just comments. I think both reports are great, and I see that it's been put into all of this, and this is why I think we're as successful as we are, because we address the problem and this is what makes us good. Not good, but great.
Thank you. I was just going to comment on that, and I would just say it looks like your administration took about 5 minutes to put this presentation together, because it was somewhat thorough. You covered everything there is, and y'all are doing a great job. Very enlightening the way y'all, put it out for us, and we know where we still have some challenges, but they're really minute as far as compared to everything else that y'all are doing. It's outstanding, and the rest of it, and you put it together and you put it in a presentation that is quite, evident that we're doing real well. We appreciate everything. But again, any questions from the audience? Thank you so much for taking the time to do this for us. Moving on to item 6, Career and Technology Education, CTE Facilities Needs. Dr. Salazar.
Mr. Garza and members of the board, most facilities needs in the presentation you'll hear in a few minutes circles are the result of the curriculum changes and the opportunities that we want to create for kids. You will recall that for a number of years in the state of Texas, we were focused on getting every student to college. Students were bound by graduation requirements that included the 4x4, 4 years of math, 4 years of all subjects in the core area. There's been a paradigm shift across the state and in the legislature as parents and superintendents approach legislators and stressed that we could not test our way to college readiness. Remember when there was a movement to do the 15 EOCs? That was going to be one of the requirements to make sure that that's how we were going to make sure that all students were ready for college. And so the realization that not all students would go to college and that there are viable careers in other areas that do not require a 4-year degree, that paradigm shift was captured in House Bill 5. House Bill 5 actually swung the pendulum the other way. You'll remember the years of vocational education when we were in school. That's not what this is. CTE brings students meaningful learning experiences, stackable credentials, and those meaningful learning experiences begin in the classroom. The programs are now tiered where the experiences can lead to job shadowing and internships, apprenticeships, and so our career and technology education programs have really evolved. And here to tell us about some of our facility needs driven by the experiences that we want to offer our students is our Director of Career and Technology, Mr. Ronnie Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Garza, members of the board, Dr. Salazar. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Selena Grenier, who works with me daily and for our students here in CT. She's been a big shot in the arm for the CT program, and I want to thank her in front of everyone here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Very briefly, to talk very briefly about some possibilities that we are doing here in Los Fresnos. Before you see, currently we send students to TSC iTech Center daily. The iTech Center is what was formerly known as the Amigo Land Mall area, just to kind of give you an idea of where we are. So we've had to deal with a few hurdles, a few obstacles. We are leading the way as far as enrollment of our students there. TSC has been very, very helpful to us, but busing them there every day has been a chore. It's an issue that we tackle every day, but we're getting by there, and we're getting by. We've had to deal with things such as the city of Brownsville sometimes has other things going on that we don't have going on here, and we have to make arrangements to get there and back. So we've encountered some things, but we're proud of what our students are doing there. The main thing that we're doing there is we're providing them a skill that they can use anywhere in the United States today. We're also providing them an opportunity to gain dual enrollment. So they're there. We have actually 9th through 12th grade students, 9th and 10th grade students from LFU at the TSCI Tech Center right now gaining dual enrollment, college credit, and also gaining a valuable skill. Here on the screen you see our students at TSC at a mock-up electrician lab. These are our students here. These belts, all these tools, we provide for them through our funds. So any equipment that they need for those classes, we provide for them, whether it be steel-toe boots, pliers, belts, tape measures, whatever they need, we provide that for them. What we don't have is a facility right now. So what would be an advantage of having something here in-house? One of the main advantage, probably the most main advantage, would be the to maximize instructional time. Right now, our students get on the bus at 12:30 midday, and they leave the TSC iTech campus at 5:30 to 5:40 every day. So they're missing out on a lot of things that just the high school life that they used to know. For instance, being involved in student clubs, student organizations, things like that, because of travel. And to have programs such as this in-house would be just a great shot in the arm, not only for our district, but for the community of Los Fresnos. So here are our students. Right now they're taking classes such as electrical, construction, auto body, automotive, and the possibility of HVAC. What we would like to offer here in Los Fresnos would be plumbing, electrical, construction, and HVAC. Those 4 programs, industrial trade programs, would be a big shot in the arm for us, for our students, but most of all for our community and our region. This particular student here is at LFU. He's a construction class, tremendous student, the top student over there, and he's a 9th grader. So doing great stuff for us, representing us. So like I said, at the moment, we don't have these facilities here. We don't have a space, and that's all we would need, a space. And then we could make the best of whatever space there could be. So this is a quote that from a person that I'm sure everybody knows, and it says, and I'll read it quickly for you, "The landscape of our workforce is rapidly changing right before our eyes. With up to 80% of tomorrow's jobs predicted to be in technical skill areas, not requiring a full 4-year degree, as stewards of our future generations, we should be watching the horizons, studying the labor market trends, and planning and developing the career and technical programs of laboratories that our students can use to learn and develop the technical skills set to be required for the new and emerging industries that are coming our way. For example, the LNGs, shipbuilding, steel mills, space launch facilities, and advanced manufacturing, just for starters." And that's from Pat Hobbs, our Executive Director for Cameron Workforce Solutions Cameron, who's I've been very fortunate to be invited to meetings by him and to listen to these people who are looking for skilled workers. We just don't have them right now. So that would be our job, to make sure that our students are prepared. We just need the area. So these are some of the hurdles that we've encountered. Like I said, just mentioned briefly before. One is transportation. Our students leave the campus at 12:30 to get to a 1 o'clock class, and then they return at 5:30 to 5:40 to get back. And then we have to kind of coordinate getting on the late bus and make sure they get home. So that's been a little iffy at time. The other thing, the time is, like I said, it's a long day for these students. These are students that are used to leaving at 4:15, but like I talked to them, this is a college course. That's one of the things I really stress with them. It's a college course, and they have to be ready for the grind, and they are, and they have been. One of the main reasons that a hurdle that we've encountered is these right here, scheduling. For instance, we lost some kids to the program because of scheduling, because of the travel time to and from. They could not be in a class that they needed here. So they were passing the course at TSC, but because it doesn't fit in their schedule right now, they have to be put back into that class at the high school or at LFU. So if we were in-house, travel time to and from would be eliminated. It'd be just right to a center, right to a building, right to an area somewhere, and then back to class. Another thing is assessments. TSC, they have their own thing, they have their own schedule, but we have assessments that we must abide by. We have all the STAR tests, we have district assessments, we have benchmarks that when our students, first of all, I am here to service for the principals, service our students, and if these principals need these students on their campus taking an assessment, they need to be there. So there we're calling TSC saying this student may not be there today because of this. So having our students in-house, that would eliminate that entirely, because we would know our schedule, of course. We would know when our assessments are. So that's a big thing. And of course, our calendars are different. Our students have been in school since January 9th. Our students have not returned yet, but will return tomorrow to start the spring semester. So for 2 weeks, we're holding them, just kind of holding, and we're in a holding pattern, either in the library or somewhere, so we can make sure that they're holding ready to go back to class. So scheduling has been an issue, assessments and calendars, and of course, like I mentioned briefly before, school activities. Just the high school life of our students has changed, and we'd like for them to continue the high school life, to be part of clubs, to be part of student organizations, at the same time getting these college credits that they can earn. Some of the goals for the students that we have planned. Thank you. Selena, Ms. Grenier is passing out just a brief folder with some handouts within the folder. Some of these handouts you have seen already somewhere down the line, and they talk about the certifications that our students have an opportunity to get. The first one, the certifications are that our students can gather at the college course. For instance, electrical technician, apprenticeship in electrical, apprenticeship in HVAC. These are all skills that I wish I knew now. I know most of us have inquired about someone working at our house in some kind of job, and they make very, very good money. We provided for you some of the jobs there and these certificates that they can gain or to earn, but also a salary. That's the biggest difference that you will see in your packet. So by law or through the accountability A through F rating, we are required to report all our students and their certificates earned. So right now the list is at 73 certificates that our students can possibly earn, but right now we are gaining about 7 to 8 of those certificates, which is really way above the district, the valley in the areas, but we would like to increase those certificates earned. Right now, before the state and the state directors, CT directors, is a new list, and before the superintendents is a new list of approximately 212 possible certifications that our students can earn. That is still to be discussed, and it will be coming up at our CT directors meeting February 11th in San Antonio. So right now, they're trying to expand that list of 73 that is being used for accountability purposes, and we'll know more about that in the next few weeks. So certifications are super important. Of course, the industry-based certifications, which I just talked about, the accountability system. All these are opportunities that our students can get by working at an industrial trade here in Los Fresnos. Just the more that they can do. Also, we're going to provide a skill for them for the ever-changing workforce. I was fortunate to go to a meeting put on by the Cameron County Workforce Solution, where they brought in speakers from around the country in plumbing, electrical, construction, HVAC, and they flat out said, we come to Corpus and we stop right there, because we would love to come to our area, to your area, but the skilled workers are not there. Please get us the students, please get us the workers, and we'll hire anybody that's out there. They're even willing to start pre-apprenticeship programs, as Dr. Salazar mentioned, and they're willing to do something called learn while you learn. So you can still go to school and still get paid to be a pre-apprentice for these programs. So by doing that and getting our students ready, it just opens up so many doors for them in skilled areas. And also, the last thing there, be able to provide a facility or a space. This is very important that our district can be proud of, but most importantly, our community. We'd love for our community to use our building, to be able to use this, especially now with our partnership with TSU on this Lifelong Learning Academy that we're starting up very, very soon. That, I'm sure, is going to explode and just get bigger and bigger as we go on. And to have a facility that they can use at night, adults, community members of Los Fresnos, that would be a big shot in the arm for us. So this is an example of I was able to go to Texas City last year, and what they did, they had a long wing, just a long single building, and within that building they had these labs set up side by side. And you could go from, this is happened to be a construction lab, this is an office for the instructor, this is a storage area. This door was coming from another lab that was sitting next to it, and this door here led to the classroom for these. So these students would be in a classroom, then let's go into the lab, and they would go into the lab. So they had construction, over there they had pipe fitting and other, just all in a row, just like that. And so what we're looking for are something, or just the opportunity to offer 4 industrial trades classes, somewhere that could maybe house 4 sections or 4 classes like this. And this is very similar. This particular lab is, I believe, 33 by 56. 33 by 56. So how do we, if we were to get something like this, how do we furnish it? How do we put the equipment in it? CT would pay for all that as far as putting the equipment in there. There are companies that we tell them we have 4 spaces, one for electrical, one for plumbing, one for construction, and one for HVAC. And they come in there and they say, okay, if you give me this amount of square footage, this is what you need to run that class. That's what they do, because we don't want to be guessing, overbuying or underbuying. And so these people will come in and just say, okay, for example, this is a lab in Aldine, brand new lab. This is what you would see in these labs. These are modules where they learn electrical, where they learn HVAC, where they learn construction. Construction will obviously be mock-up, building, and plumbing. So a company will come in here and just set up this building, or they set up the space, whatever space we have, and we would say we need a space for plumbing, and they say, okay, what is the square footage, and they prepare it. And that's we got to visit something like this in Katy. So Westaco has something very similar to this as well. Just workspace. This is just wanted to share this picture. This is a single freestanding career tech center or career tech building. This is in Carrizo Springs, and there's 4 doors, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know anything else about this building, but I just want to give you an idea of what a freestanding building would look like. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure there's got to be some doors on the backside, like big garage doors that have some kind of entry. But just to get an idea. Any questions for me or Ms. Brunier?
Questions from the board? Ms. Garcia.
I had written down, would participation increase? And you talked about how, because of the scheduling and everything, you could better accommodate. So yeah, we could see where the participation would increase.
Yes, ma'am.
Who would teach these classes?
Very good question. that would, we talked to Dr. Salazar earlier, we would have to look for instructors. Some districts use craftsmen to teach these classes, and that's another issue as far as a district of innovation. You can ask for permission to have craftsmen teach this class. Master plumber, master electrician, master construction.
Oh, that's what a craftsman is?
Yes.
That was my next
Yes.
question.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was okay. And with the lifelong learning, like if we had a lifelong learning program with like CISD, would they would use it at night and we would charge rent, or what? How would that work?
That has been a goal of ours. Of course, they have to get certified by SAC. They have to get SACS accreditation, so that wouldn't happen overnight. So I don't want to mislead anybody, but that would be wonderful if they could bring the community college to the community, as has been done in the Upper Valley. It's been done very well. So we could enter into some form of partnership where we lease it in the evenings, or waive any fees, so that it makes it more appealing to want to offer that in our community. I think they too would increase their enrollment that way.
Mr. Castillo?
Dr. Salazar, don't we have something in the plan for this? Have we talked about something like that?
Yes, this is a vision and a conversation we've had for quite some time, and we've talked about relocating a middle school and converting an entire middle school to see if we, at some point, we could have the presence of a community college here in Los Fresnos.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you for your time.
Item 7, action item. Discuss and take action to approve the superintendent's personnel recommendations for the following positions for the 2018-2019 school year. Teachers. Do I have a motion? Mr. Farias. Mr. Farias moves to approve the superintendent's personnel recommendation for the 2018-2019 school year. Is there a second? Mr. Amaya. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Having no discussion, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the superintendent's personnel recommendation for the following position for the 2018-2019 school year. Teachers. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand, please. Motion passes unanimous. Do we have any of these employees here? Please stand and thank you and welcome aboard. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be a lot of work, but you're going to enjoy it. Okay. Thank you. Now we'll go to item 8. We're going to go into closed session pursuant to section 551.071 and 551.072 and 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. We're going to discuss item 2, real estate matters, 3, superintendent's annual summative evaluation, and item 4, superintendent's contract terms. We are now in closed session. It is 7:12. We're in closed sessions. Okay, we're back in open session. I believe we're going to go to item 3 and item 4. Item 3, do I have a motion? Mr. Trevino.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the summative performance evaluation of the superintendent as discussed in executive session.
Do I have a second? Mr. Farias. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve the summative performance evaluation of the superintendent that was discussed in executive session. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand, please. Unanimous. Item 4, take action to approve the terms of the superintendent's contract as discussed in the executive session. Do I have a motion? Ms. Garcia.
Mr. Epstein, I move to approve the superintendent's contract as discussed in the executive session.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Mr. Trevino. We have a motion and a second to approve the terms of superintendent's contract as discussed in the executive session. Discussion. Having no discussion, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand, please. Motion passes unanimous. Okay. You have to turn in your keys. I don't know why it's so humorous. I think it's pretty serious. Okay, Dr. Salazar, announcements, please. Okay, fine. Item 2. Let's go back to item 2, Mr. Salazar wants to. Take action necessary regarding real estate matters. Do we have a motion on that? Mr. Amaya. Mr. Amaya. Well put. Do I have a second on that? Mr. Trevino. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Having no discussion, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve discussion on the real estate matters as discussed in the executive session. All those in favor, all those in favor indicate by raising your hand, please. Motion passes unanimous. Now we can go to announcements.
Mr. Garza, members of the board, we have a couple of athletic events taking place tomorrow evening. If you enjoy basketball, there's a doubleheader versus boys and the girls against Harlingen South. And if you prefer to watch a soccer game, soccer against San Benito Greyhounds right here at Leo Aguilar Memorial Stadium at 7 p.m. If spelling bee is what you prefer, we have that too on Saturday, January 26th at 9 a.m. at the Los Fresnos United Cafeteria. And I don't know what is more tense, the fourth quarter of a basketball game or the spelling bee. Spelling. Our regular school board meeting is Monday, February 11th at 6 p.m. in this room. Those are all the announcements.
Any other announcements? It is 8:21. We're adjourned.